So I will give a very brief introduction to our local integration policy of Ninove, that is in Belgium. So I will give you a short introduction about our organization, our local context, and our local and super local integration policies with some evolutions. So first of all, Ninove is a city of 40,000 inhabitants, so we're actually celebrating our 40,000 inhabitants this month with actually a nice and inclusive campaign, and we talked about it yesterday as well a bit, about sensibilization. So we have a campaign that we have 40,000 inhabitants, and every inhabitant has his own or her own story. So it's a very inclusive campaign with all stories that, you know, in the local newspaper we do interviews with those people, the story behind them, and they're all diverse people in Ninove. So we have 714 products and services. If you count everything, every kind of service that we provide, we have 714 products, and we have plus minus 635 employees that work for the municipality of Ninove. That's without the teachers and without police, the local police. So that's really just people who work for the municipality. So just to give you a brief structure of our organization, we have a front and a back office, and we work with domains. So why is this important to know is to know where is your integration office located in your organization, so you have the right mandate to roll out projects. So we find ourselves in the primary and primary care and service. So we give advice for that domain to our politicians. So it's actually a good position to do an integration policy, because before an integration officer was located in the internal affairs, and then you don't really have the mandate to actually work for at the integration policy. Yeah, it's very tiny, but you have the front is the primary care and service, and at the back offices we have our technical execution. It's like people who also work for the municipality to take care of our streets and everything. Territory affairs, you know, with the building permissions and everything. And then we have leisure and education, who also have a front office, but it's mainly located at the back office, internal services and finance. So these are our domains we work in. So just a brief meet my team, because it's very important to know that we are a new team since 2020. Before we only, yes, before we only were two project managers. It was somebody who did the anti-poverty policy and an integration policy. So we were divided, we were working next to each other, but then with the integration or the fusion between our public social center and our city center, then we became one service, and we had an inclusive approach. So every project that we actually roll out, we try to look not only from the perspective of integration, but also from the perspective of people who live in poverty, people with LGBTQ plus community, people with a handicap. We try to actually make it as inclusive as possible. So yeah, with our functions, it's mostly, we work out the projects, we try to keep up or keeping track of the regulations, apply for government funding, and so on. So these are our main responsibilities. Here you see a beautiful picture of our crossing. It's a pedestrian crossing also for the cyclists. It's actually a crossing that's our river Denver, very important. And it's a crossing between the city center and our park on the left side for you. And there we also all have the sports and leisure activities. So yeah, it's a nice place. We visit in 2023 next year, or you can come and see. So what are our influencing factors in Ninove? So we are located near the capital is Brussels, so we have a very good connection by bus and train. So we see that people, and mostly these are families with young children from foreign origin who come live in Ninove because of the affordable housing. Brussels is a big city, a very expensive life. The employment opportunities are also more likely in the Flemish region. So they're also looking out for their children to give more opportunities for schooling, better work, and actually also a calmer and greener environment. So these are the main factors why people from the region of the capital, Brussels, are moving to our city. So we have a really big migration to our city. Mostly of people, but I will show you in a graph as well. So maybe to start with the total amount of citizens from 2012 to 2022 now, we had in 2012 we had 37,300 inhabitants, and now in 2022 we have 40,000 inhabitants, because in October it will be 40,000. So important thing to say here is that we have around 1,900 people who move to Ninove annually, and like 30 to 35% have a migration background, but we also have around 1,600 people who move out of our city, and this is mostly the natives, the people with Belgian backgrounds who move out of our city. So that causes actually an acceleration in our demographic evolution or change. So it's becoming very, very diverse in a very short period of time. So if we look at the total percentage of citizens with foreign origin, so from 2012 it was only 11%, and 10 years later it's actually almost 22% of our citizens have a foreign origin. So it's a fast evolution. When we look at the demographic composition, mostly, so as I said, it was family with small children, and as you can see, the first tranche of age is from 0 to 70 years, and there you can see that 31% is actually their children from non-European roots. So we have lots and lots of children who come from African or Maghreb countries, and they're not from the EU. Then for the active age of 18 to 46 years, we have also more people from non-EU, 14%, and 7% of EU for origin. And then, as you can see, people 65 years and older are mostly actually natives, Belgian people. So actually that causes more of this polarization in between those groups, because the elder people are nostalgic for Ninove as it was before, back in the day, and that all the young families that come to Ninove, it causes some frictions between those groups, so between the elder and the younger. So that's important to say. When we look at the countries of origin or the groups, so as I said, we have a large group from the Maghreb countries, so that's actually Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, and Algeria, and other African cultures, so that is 5.9% of our population, and 5.3% is actually from other African countries, with the Republic of Congo as #1. So if you know a little bit of the history, Belgium and the Republic of Congo had a strong relationship before. So I tried to. And then we also have a group of Eastern European people, and that has mostly to do with the fact that there is also a lot of seasonal yes, seasonal workers, thank you. So they are mostly represented in businesses like construction and so on. So that's also a big group. Yeah. So in Belgium, it's important to say we have a Flemish regulation around integration policies. So you have a program that consists of mandatory or optional integration. So mandatory means that when you are new in Belgium and you live less than 5 years in Belgium and you come from a non-European country, then you have to follow the Dutch courses, then you have to follow an integration course. And when you come from European countries or you live longer than 5 years in Belgium, it's actually optional, so you can choose whether you're going to do it or not. So what is important to say is that with the people who come from Brussels to Ninove, they're actually not new citizens anymore. They live there for many years, and in Brussels they also have a completely different kind of legislation around it, so it makes work just a bit more interesting. So that affects actually our integration policies, because those people are no longer new, they're not considered as new citizens, so they don't have to follow this program, they don't have to follow Dutch courses, they have the choice to do it. So in Ninove, 70% who arrive are not actually obliged to follow an integration course. And that's actually very challenging for us because they put their children at Flemish schools, so it's difficult in communication, there's a lot of frustration to communicate with the parents and so on. So that's
to make clear, the majority language in Brussels is French.
Yes, yeah. That's an important, important. So they're mostly French-speaking people, yes. So what are the local trends? We have this fast demographic change in the population. So as I said, it's quite challenging. We have some rising polarization between the groups as well. We also have more this tendency to have a very strong opposition that is more far right. So they try to win the votes by putting all the blame on migration and this policy. So most of the people are also sitting in the city center, just like Debra, as I understood, and specific neighborhoods. So we do have 3 to 4 neighborhoods where we have a concentration of people where we have to have a specific policy. What do I mean by a sleeping community? So it's not a word that really exists in English, but it's actually very difficult to let people participate on our local activities because they actually still so close to Brussels. So they work there, they live there, and they go to school there. Not their children, but if they follow schooling, they prefer to go to Brussels. So they actually just come home at 7 p.m. They eat and sleep and actually do not participate really much in our dormitory. Yeah, let's say that it's a dormitory town. So that's also a challenge. Like, maybe we can have this discussion later on, but I find it very interesting that when communities are very how to make them participate more on a local level. So that's something that is very challenging in Ninove. And the challenges in education, as I said, with the language, we have lots and lots of children. For the primary schools, the teachers are really not educated enough, or they don't have a policy around having these diverse classes of 30 children when you have 10 to 15 children who do not speak Dutch very well, who do not participate, the parents do not come to activities and so on. So that's also a very big domain where we should work on. And the rising poverty as well is also a factor that contributes to the polarization that we have in our city. So this is actually our old town hall. So it was the first. And as you can see, it is literally all carrots, if you can see very well. So the story behind it, maybe just a tiny fun fact about our city. So the story behind the carrots is that actually back in the day, or in the past, when the city of Aalst tried to invade Ninove, we had like this gate, and so the citizens of Ninove did not find the key to close the gates, and they used a carrot, as the legend says. They used a carrot to close the gates, but actually, as the legend says, there was a donkey who ate the carrot and the gate was open again, so they could invade. So now it's a kind of a symbol for our citizens, and it's used in carnival periods, so it's like, yeah, something to be proud about. So I listed up lots and lots of projects. So as I said, we have a new team since 2020, but we started our integration policies around 2015. What do I want to say or mean by a transversal team? Because it's also not a word in English. It's actually that this team of integration and anti-poverty policy is linked with all the other domains. So you have to work together with sports, education, you have to work with everybody as a transversal team to put the policy over and over again on the agenda. So it's a responsibility of everybody to do integration policy. So I just tried to make, yeah, maybe I should just take a couple of projects out. So I tried to categorize them in the regulatory integration, socio-economic and socio-cultural integration. So regulatory, yeah, we have the Dutch courses, we have the integration course, we have information desks that just provide legal information. Yeah, and the most important thing with this project, we have a welcome policy. So as I said, 70% of our new inhabitants who come from Brussels are not obliged to follow integration course. So they're actually just not contacted proactively. Those people come, they have so many questions, also coming from Brussels, that has a completely different way of work and administration. So we try to proactively reach out to those people, call them, have a conversation with them, explain how our city works, how the procedures work, and it's actually a one-on-one conversation with the families, and everybody's super, super excited about and thankful, grateful that they could have this information so early on in the process of arriving. Because when you just leave those people, and after some years they just have built up frustrations, there's built up distance from our services, and this is a way to try to let them participate in an early stage and help them in an early stage just before they have their problems. So what is, yeah, we have a mothers group, so that means we have like a group of mothers who come together to support their education process of the children, or to support them to, in the integration process, especially women who are staying home with their children. We try to get them out of the isolation, try to let them participate in our local policies. Yeah, we also have bike courses, we have language camp for children, we have job and language training on the working floor, so it's actually a coach who tries to activate the people at work to provide them Dutch courses while they're working. So most of the time it's a problem that you have to learn the language, it's such a long procedure, and then you can only go to work. So we try to combine those two. Yeah, we have a toy library including exchange shop and so on. So for the social cultural integration, I will maybe say, yeah, we do have some collaborations with the cities around us. So we do try to work together and learn from each other, because we're actually all in the same region, we work in the same region, we have the same challenges. So we have like this addendum 360 degrees around depolarization, where we exchange some knowledge. It's also very important to learn from each other. We have community workers who are in those neighborhoods, as I said, that where people from foreign origin centralize. We have some community work that is done there, so we try to work outreach to those people, to talk with the people, to have this build up of a community over and over again, because we have all those new people who do not know each other, and everybody just prefers to stay in their own houses. So we try to bring them together to, yeah. We also have an interreligious dialogue. We also have those communities. They actually work together very well. We try to keep track of their needs and their needs that they have from our local communities. And some diversity awareness actions, some sensibilization is also there. We also have youth workers for kids around 12 to 18 years who don't really have a place to go. We have youth workers who really come and talk with those children, try to give them activities so they just do not walk around the streets. And so just to close off with some evolutions, so the integration policy became increasingly a priority since 2020. So we had a new legislation, we had a new multi-annual plan, and actually after the elections in October of 2018, it was 40% of the citizens of Ninove voted for far-right party. Because as you can see, the frictions were actually building and rising. So only with the new legislation of 2020, we really made it a priority to have an integration policy. And that has a link with the budget. So that means that we've got more resources, that we started to invest money in this policy. So it's actually not that long ago. We have the professionalization of our staff, and extra personnel is also important. If you want to have all those projects, you need to have the people who do the job, because actually we don't really have a lot of organization or partners that are really active in Ninove. So we really have to do a lot of ourselves. So that's also a difference with as I understood. So the future of this policy is also very uncertain. We have upcoming elections in 2024, so maybe we will have an absolute majority of far-right, because they already had 40%, so we're actually expecting that it might all be scaled down in 2 years. Significant focus from our super-local government on our region, so also this project, and you all probably heard about the podcast that we did with the University of Antwerp. Actually, a lot of more of attention is going to our region as a whole, because it's a forgotten region. There were not a lot of funding that we got, so that's actually changing a little bit, so that's a positive thing. And the trend of the reference regions and intermunicipal collaborations is also very important. As we are small cities working all next to each other, I think it's the future to work together with the region, to split the funding, to have one social worker active in a bigger region. So I think that's something that we will work on more and more. So that was a brief introduction. So maybe any questions?
Is it only, if I understand, is it only or mainly second, third generation migrants, right? Or is it also new arrivals?
Yeah, so we do have a history of migration with especially Moroccan and Turkish groups from the 60s. But as this migration from Brussels, it's actually constantly new people who are arriving and new people who are actually leaving. So that's the difficulty. I think that the communities in Debra, living there already generations and generations on, and you have like a really good overview who lives there. With us, it's actually the amount of people who would only live 1 year or a year and a half in Ninove is very large. So you always have those new forming communities, and that's actually the reason why it's so difficult to form a community, because you all have those flow that is constantly coming and going. So that's
and also asylum seekers, and you have also asylum seekers as well.
yes,
Yeah.
we do.
So the classical migration groups are Morgans, Turkish and Italians in Belgium. They are often second, third, fourth generation. In the 90s we had a lot of asylum migration and Eastern European migration. And in this region there's a lot of sub-Saharan African migration,
Okay.
which is of course very visible. But these are often much newer. They're not second generation.
I was just wondering that these people that are coming, for example, from Brussels, right? They haven't had themselves another program for integration, or
Yes.
what is happening?
Yeah, because
I don't
Brussels is
understand
like
all this,
Brussels
Is
has
it a double? Is it different? Is it?
Yeah, it's difficult because I also don't know all the details about the policies of Brussels. It's very specific, but Brussels just only in 2020 they decided to to actually have an integration policy that is more of a mandatory character. So actually before there was just nothing.
Nothing. Okay. Now I understand. Yeah.
And that makes it very difficult for those people. Oh, they come to Flanders and they speak only Dutch. It's no French. Why? And we all have this. A real integration policy was not really there. And I think Sabine can confirm. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And the language is also very important because language is of course functional. If you want to interact with your environment, it's better to speak the local language because then you can. But given the history of the language struggle in Belgium, not speaking the local language is not only seen as this is not functional, this is not pragmatic, but also ideological. If you don't speak the local language, you very clearly say, I do not want to integrate.
Yes.
That's a perception of the majority perception in the population. And that is not just in relation to the official institutions such as the school or the administration, but also on the street.
Yes.